Hey, what's going on, guys, and welcome to the Cornerstone Builder. My name is Josh Donnelly, and in today's video, we are going to take a look at how to leverage Masonry natively within the Cornerstone Builder. So without further ado, let's dive in. So here we are in the Cornerstone Builder, and we are going to get started by simply adding a row to this section that we have right here. This is going to be our testimonial section. So we'll go ahead and create a row, and we are going to pick a layout for this. I'm going to do a 3x row here. So I think this is looking pretty good. Now what we're going to do is style our testimonials here within the column. So let's go ahead and click on column 1. Let's give it some sort of background here to start. I think that's looking pretty good. We'll round out the edges just to give it a stylized look. We'll give it a little bit of a border here, and let's go ahead and just match a darker version of this green. So we'll come in here to our border, we'll add that green in, and then we'll go with something a little darker like that there. I think that's looking good. Let's add some padding all around, and now let's grab our testimonial text and drop that in. Now I'm going to drop some placeholder in here, so we're just going to go out to Lorem Ipsum. We'll grab this placeholder copy here, and we'll jump on back to Cornerstone, and we'll paste in our Lorem Ipsum copy. Now I want there to be a little bit more breathing room in the text, so we'll just change our line height here to 1.4. I think that's looking good, and just for the sake of this design here, let's take our size down a little bit for the testimonial, so maybe something like this here. I think that's looking pretty good. Now let's go ahead and just add in a headline to use as a citation, and so we'll call this John Doe. And maybe we just put a dash at the front. Obviously, you could style this however you saw fit. And then we'll come into Flexbox here, and we're going to go ahead and add a gap of 1 within our column here, and that just ensures that our citation and our testimonial text always have a nice little gap in between them there. So now let's go ahead and copy paste this into these other columns, and let's actually do another row of this. So here is what a standard row with columns would look like. Now we're going to go ahead and vary our testimonial length here. So some of these might be longer and some of these might be shorter. So something like this here, something like this, something like that, and then maybe something like this here. And I think that's looking pretty good, but you can see how these vary in length. Now what we're going to do is select our row here, and with the row inspected, we're going to scroll down in the inspector here until we get down to Masonry. We're going to go ahead and enable Masonry, and right off the bat, you'll notice that this is looking pretty good. Now we can come in here and we can play with different things. Origin left determines whether or not it needs to be left to right or right to left. So for example, we could come in here and we'll label this 1, we'll label this 2, we'll label this one 3, we'll label this one 4, 5, and 6, corresponding with the columns that they are in here in Cornerstone. Now you'll notice if I scroll down to Masonry again and I turn off origin left, now it is a right to left. So we have column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4, 5, and 6. So if we want this to be left to right, we want to make sure that we have origin left enabled. So now we're back to our order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then we could decide whether we want origin top enabled. Right now, these all start up at the top here. If we disable origin top, everything drops down to origin bottom, which now keeps everything in line at the bottom here, but I think we want top. Then we can also determine whether or not we want to preserve our horizontal order. Currently, by default, we are preserving our horizontal order, and what that means is that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 from left to right. If we go ahead and we disable horizontal order, the Masonry layout will figure out the best layout for the content that we have. And now that's looking pretty good. And you'll notice, for us, it isn't crucial that these stay in the same order, but they are no longer in chronological order. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 down here. But this is coming together quite nicely. And then finally in our Masonry controls, if we had some sort of JavaScript inside of some of these containers, then we would want to make sure that we set our stagger here, which basically staggers the load of this Masonry element until after some custom JavaScript loads. But I think we are in pretty good shape just leaving this at 30. So let's go ahead and save, and we'll take a look at this on the front end, and here we have a nice testimonial. And now the great thing about utilizing the Masonry layout is that it scales automatically. So we can come into our row here and we can duplicate something like column 3. Let's duplicate column 1. Let's duplicate column 7. And you'll notice everything is laying out nicely. Now, you may need to play around with your design to make sure you're filling in any gaps that you want to fill in, but all in all, I think this is looking like a great layout. Now, just like with any other container, we can jump into our row, go into Customize. We could enable our looper provider and our consumer, and we could grab this data dynamically from the back end, and it'll still preserve our layout. Now, we're utilizing text to do this here as a testimonial, but you could do the same thing with imagery. We would do something like, let's go ahead and create a new section here. Inside of this section, we'll do a 3 by row and column setup here. And now within this, we are going to add an image to the background of this column. So we're going to enable our advanced background and our image element. And then within that, we'll go ahead and add this image here. Let's give this a rounded border as well. And now we could determine some sizing. For this first one, let's go ahead and make this 300 pixels. We'll go ahead and paste that here. And let's do this. We'll duplicate it a few more times here. And I think that's looking pretty good. Now, selecting the row, we'll scroll down and we will enable our Masonry layout here. You'll notice initially nothing is happening, and that's because these are all sized exactly the same. But now we can play with our heights on these images to create our own stagger. So in this case, on this one here, I want this to be 700. And on this one here, I want this to be 500. And on this one here, I want this to be 800. And on this one here, I want this to be 200. And on this one here, I want this to be 500. And on this one here, we'll just make this one 350. And now if we go ahead and save and we jump out to the front end, we have our images in a nice Masonry layout here, and we have our testimonials in a nice Masonry layout here. And just like with any row and column setup, we can adjust this responsively. So we could come in here and we could see how this looks on various device sizes. We can click on this here. We could drop this on tablet down to 2 columns. So we'd come down here and click 2. Now we have a 2-column Masonry layout. And then we could come down here and we could convert this to 1 column on mobile sizes here. And I think that's looking pretty good. And there you have it. The sky is truly the limit with this new Masonry element. I look forward to seeing how you guys utilize this in your designs, and I will see you guys in the next video. Happy building!